guys can see. I hope that I'm sharing the screen too. So we're looking at the presentation here. So the agenda items today, I've broken it into 4 categories that I think will be relevant to you. And just to preface this, about half of the attendees are payroll professionals. So what we have for that user group is a Workful Pro dashboard where you'd be able to manage multiple companies from one dashboard, similar to what you're experiencing now with TaxSlayer books. And then another portion, the other half of this audience, is business owners who are processing payroll for their own companies. So I'm saying that to kind of highlight that this is going to be a little more high-level presentation, certainly the payroll run. Just kind of want to show you what the steps are and what the difference would be between this and TaxSlayer books. I have a more in-depth webinar recorded that I'd like to share with any payroll professionals that really deep dives into the Workful Pro dashboard. Shows you how to navigate, shows you how to onboard new clients. And we'll cover some of that today, but if you feel like you need more info, we're going to get that greater detailed video out to you. So agenda items today, we want to cover the payroll run, so the step-by-step process to cut paychecks or to initiate direct deposits. We want to cover the employee setup. It's a little bit different from TaxSlayer books, a lot simpler, I would say. That'll be section 2. Section 3 is creating a company. So this would really probably going to pertain more for the Workful Pro audience, but I still want to cover it for the business owner customers as well. And want to reiterate something I mentioned in the email, that we are going to be doing all the setup for you to get your data from TaxSlayer books to Workful. So none of this company setup are things that you'll need to address when you move over. It will be, if you add new clients, this would be important for you to know. And then lastly, I want to cover some new features, so some things that you'll be able to take advantage of if you choose to in the new system. Okay, so section 1, running payroll. We're going to do a quick demo of the product so you can see firsthand what that payroll run looks like. I've got a slide covering the difference between books and Workful, and then we'll touch on some new features. So at this point, you ought to be able to see a Chrome window for with the Workful website here. You got a gentleman happily running his payroll for his office there, and I'm going to jump right into my demo company. You can already probably notice the updated look and feel of the system. It's a little bit cleaner, a little more cut and dry here. So, and that was one of the primary objectives was making things easier with this system for our pros and for our business owners. So, something to highlight right away is that the payroll run is going to be based on the company pay schedule. Meaning, when we set up this company for you, we're going to set up whatever pay schedule you had in TaxSlayer books, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. And when you log into your dashboard, the payroll widget is going to illustrate whatever that pay period is. So it's going to say your current pay period is between these dates. If you're running direct deposit, you'll need to run it by a specific date so that your team is paid on time. Now, I'll cover a couple other options for running payroll in just a moment, but I'm just going to run through this real quickly. So we'll hit this when it's time to run payroll, whether you're printing checks or running direct deposit. You'll hit this Run Payroll button. Again, it's going to show you that date range for the pay period. And then we're going to list out the employees one by one. So if you recall in TaxSlayer Book Suite, it's a little more squished together. You've got your list of employees all almost in like a spreadsheet version. And to get granular, you gotta click into them to make any adjustments. So what we've got here is each employee broken out. If it's a salaried employee, it's going to have their salary listed here. It's got your payment method. So these are all on printed checks. If you do offer direct deposit, they're going to default to direct deposit. But you can always select printed check if you are if you need to not run a direct deposit that week. So for hourly employees, it's a similar process to TaxSlayer Books. You're going to plug in the hours. We've got an integrated timesheet system that I'll cover a little later on in this video, or this webinar, excuse me. But if you are using that, it's going to automatically pull in those hours from the timesheet. So it calculates that paycheck on the fly. If you're running payroll for restaurants, you've got the ability to report your tips in the check or cash tips that were collected during a shift. You also have the ability to add additional pay rates similar to TaxSlayer Books, so you can add whatever pay types that you need to make sure your business or your clients are taken care of. So we'll run through this real quickly. We'll plug in the hours for these employees. You'll notice some of them have additional earnings. Jimmy here has an additional $800 payment during the pay period. Kimberly Duff has a commission payment of $200. Go. Let's get his hours in. Oh, he's on a salary. Okay, so again, I just want to highlight, if you are using the timesheets, these hours will pull in. If you're not, you'll plug them in very simply. Step 2 is our time off feature. This is also new to Workful. If you don't have a time off policy, or if you're not utilizing this feature, this step will just illustrate, it'll just be an illustration of a guy sitting on the beach, sipping on a drink with an umbrella in it. If you do utilize this feature and your client or your company is using the time off feature, it's going to automatically calculate these time off hours. If not, you can also do it on the fly by plugging the hours in. So step three is going to be the breakdown, and we're going to calculate the deductions, the withholdings, the company taxes, and you can see a full detailed breakdown by downloading the summary. What that does is kicks out this PDF, and you can really get nitty gritty on each of the employees, on all the company info. Let me see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. Make sure that's legible for everybody. It gives you a breakdown for each employee pay stub, all their deductions, withholdings, and the employer contributions as well. So I want to kind of pause right here for a minute, because I know in the email that I sent out and in this presentation, I may have already mentioned that Workful offers a full service tax filing system. I want to point out that if you opt into the full service tax filing, meaning that we would handle all state and federal filing for you, during this step and in the payroll run, it's going to show you what the company contribution is, what all the liability totals are, and what we're going to do is collect that at this point in the payroll run and remit that payment to the federal or state agency that it's owed to on the due date, along with the form that accompanies it. So in April, we'll file that Q1 941 with the payment, with the form. We'll deal with the IRS for you, so it gives you back some time and some headache, or prevents the headache. So the last step here is to jump back into this is we want to submit payroll. If you are printing checks, as this company is, it's going to give you the check total. It's going to give you the check amount for each employee. A little button here to download the checks, in which case, which is similar to the TaxSlayer books process. So at this point, you can either print these checks out on check stack that you have in the office. If you're running payroll for clients, you can send this file to your client and they can print the checks themselves in their office. Or if you're running direct deposit, you'll be able to, that's just going to kick off the direct deposit initiation. So we'll close that. Payday, we're actually a week out from payday, so we're ahead of the game here. So it gives you the payday date, the total, and again, a summary of what you just did. Okay, so there we go. So just to reiterate a couple things we just covered, the main payroll feature is based on the company pay schedule. So all the employees are going to be plugged into this company pay schedule unless you specifically opt one of them out. When you upgrade to full service tax filing, we collect the tax liabilities every payroll run. And then what I want to cover next is the contractor payments. So this is a brand new feature with TaxSlayer Payroll, I'm sorry, with Workful, where we have a system to pay contractors and track their payments and total them up and file their 1099s at the end of the year. So in TaxSlayer books, what you would have done is you would have set them up as a vendor, you would have printed checks or recorded checks to them, and then totaled up a 1099 at the end of the year. With the Workful systems, it's set up a little more for companies who have contractors as opposed to employees. So if you think construction, if you think maybe some of you in your tax offices might have seasonal people who come in and you pay them as contractors. Well, this is a way to really treat them like or similar to an employee. So we've got Dennis O'Keefe here. That's me. I'm on a direct deposit. I've got an hourly rate that's already locked into the system. So let's say I worked 25 hours that week. It's going to calculate the total of the check. You also have the ability to put in additional earnings to your contractors. Let's say if you had some sort of incentive for them, if you had task-related fees, or if they had task-related fees that were not locked into their hourly rate, you can plug in that total. You can add a little personal note to describe what it is. And then just like the other payroll run, we will generate a PDF of the check, or you can send this out as a direct deposit, which again is new to Workful, different from TaxSlayer books. We never had the ability to make ACH payments to contractors. All right, we're going to leave that. All right, covered those. Now, one other thing I want to point out is that, and I've actually heard feedback from some TaxSlayer books customers during this whole transition that one of the primary reasons they do not use direct deposit for their clients, or some of our small business owners do not use direct deposit for their own companies, is because the Monday to Friday ACH period was just too long. So what we're able to offer in Workful is a Wednesday to Friday direct deposit process, where if you ran payroll by 7:30 Eastern on Wednesday, the employees will be paid first thing Friday morning. So Probably not important to all of you, but I think very important to some of you, so I wanted to highlight that. Again, we touched on this, and we'll talk a little more about it. The integrated timesheets, time off tracking, and expense reimbursements in the payroll run is a new feature to Workful. Okay, up next, we want to cover the employees. So the agenda items are, I want to show what it looks like to set up. So I'm going to demo setting up an employee. I'm going to talk about the differences between TaxSlayer books versus Workful, and we're going to break this out into screenshots so I can really get a little more detail in what those differences are. I know they're very important to make sure that employees are set up and paid correctly. So we'll highlight that, and then we'll cover some new features. And part of the demo will be this employee portal. So what that means is an employee of one of your clients or an employee of your business will be able to log into Workful as an employee and only see things that pertain to them. So if you think about pay stubs, think about W-2s, think about important documents that you might share with them, they'll be able to access all that within an employee portal, as well as gain access to employee process features like a time clock, where they can clock in and out or request time off. So we'll take a look at that as well. So to add an employee, what you're going to do is go to Team Members. You'll see your list of employees here. If you've got contractors, you can break them out. If you just want to see the W-2 employees, you can break them out, or you can see them all in one list. So we're going to add a team member. Again, you've got the option for contractors now in Workful, and we give you a little breakdown of what information you'll need up front. So let's select this W-2 employee. Hope I don't have another Stanley in here. Let's see, Stanley Smith. Got an optional field for job title. You're going to choose the pay type, whether they're hourly, salary, or if it's an owner, it might be an owner's draw. Now, once this employee is created, you've got the option to plug in different addition types, different pay types. So you're not locked to these three options, but these are the primary options. So I know it said that he was a sales rep, but we're still going to give him an hourly rate here. Then you'll plug in their social, date of birth, now the phone number is optional. They don't need to have a phone number in here. They also don't need to have an email address in here unless you are planning on inviting them to access the employee portal. Let's see, there we go. We gotta use our office address here in Augusta, Georgia. So I don't know if you all have seen this, but the IRS released a new W-4 this year. This toggle that you see up here for the old W-4 is not going to be an option. We just had that plugged in so we can get all of our TaxSlayer books customers transferred over smoothly without having to create a new W-4 for each one of your clients' employees, or for your business owners. We don't want you to have to do a new W-4 for each of your employees just to use Workful. However, moving forward, when you add new employees, or if you have an employee who needs to change their W-4, you're going to do that through the new federal W-4. So we're going to click through this really quickly. State W-4 should remain the same. If they have been updated, if any of the states you're in have been updated, we will have updated it for you as well. Okay, on the deductions, you've got the option to choose any of our prefix deductions here, so which will calculate out any pre-tax or post-tax deductions that you have for your employees or clients. And then lastly, it's, do you want to pay them via direct deposit or via printed check? Something to point out with Workful is that there aren't additional fees for direct deposit. With TaxSlayer books, we've always had a tag on an extra $1.50 per employee. In Workful, it's all included in the price. So I've got this company on printed checks. I'm going to continue with that. And just like that, we've got a new employee added to the company. Now I want to click into him because I want to take a look. I want to review the information I just plugged in. I want to, if you need to add any additional compensations, you can add that here. If you need to change the primary compensation, you can add that there. And what may be important to some of you is that if you need to add starting balances, you would do that here. So if you take on a client during the year, you'll need to make sure that all your year-to-date information is accurate. So we've got it broken down by quarter. I know in TaxSlayer books, you'll see this on the first step of employee setup. In Workful, we've got it on the employee profile to make that setup process a little bit cleaner. We also found out that if you haven't added all the additions and withholdings and deductions, it's pretty hard to do the starting balances. So that's why we've got it at the bottom of the employee profile. This gives you a chance to plug in any local taxes, state taxes, federal taxes, or additional withholdings. So this is on one of the following slides, but I want to address it while we're looking at this employee profile. In TaxSlayer books, the marking someone exempt, marking someone inactive is a little, the navigation's a little bit clunky, so we kind of streamlined that with Workful, where if you need to mark anybody exempt from state or federal withholdings, you can do that here on the employee profile. If you haven't paid a team member yet, employee or contractor, you can delete them entirely. If you had made a payment to that employee or contractor, but you don't want them to show up in the system, you don't want to be billed for them on a weekly basis, you go ahead and mark them inactive here. And again, I'll highlight that in an upcoming slide. Let's get out of that. Okay. So a couple things I want to highlight here, and then I'm going to show you the employee portal, is that all employees are going to be placed on the company pay schedule by default, meaning when you set up that bi-weekly or weekly pay schedule, the system is automatically going to plug an employee into that pay schedule unless you go into their profile and select a different frequency for them. Now, if you do that, you'll also need to run an off-cycle payroll to make sure they're paid on those specific dates. Whereas previously with TaxSlayer books, we kind of had them both in the same payroll run, which, believe it or not, ended up causing tremendous confusion for some people and inaccurate payroll runs for others. So we really wanted to separate the two to make it more functional and less prone to mistakes. So we cover the new W-4. If you aren't familiar with it, we have links to the IRS information on it in the products. You'll be able to click over and read up on it. Again, we want to set up all the employee additions, withholdings, and deductions before you enter the beginning balances to make sure that all the options are there. in the beginning balances for you to fill out. Otherwise, you'll get started, you'll realize one of the withholdings or additions is not there. You'll have to exit, create it within that employee, then get back to beginning balances. Okay, and then with the non-default addition, so if you have a special addition you need to add to an employee, you'll add that on the employee profile as well. Okay, so I'm pulling up the employee profile. Here we go. All right, so I know this, it looks a lot like that administrative dashboard, but this is actually the employees portal dashboard. And what you're looking at here is what an employee of your company or an employee of one of your clients' companies would see if you granted them access. And I want to reiterate that the employees will not have access to this unless you plug in their email and specifically send them an invite to join. So if you don't want them to have access for whatever reason, just to keep things simple, you don't have to. If you do, they'll be able to take advantage of our timesheet system. So they can clock in and out. They'll be able to see their hours here. They'll be able to access these other features like get their pay stubs right here off their portal, as well as submit requests to their boss, which would be time off requests, expense and mileage reimbursements, and then any adjustments to their timesheet. So I don't want to get too far into this because I don't know that this will be extremely important to some of you, but anybody who's interested in learning more about the employee features and the employee processes, please reach out to me after this. I can send you information on it, or we can discuss it over the phone. Okay. So what's the difference now? As we were going through that demo, I know I highlighted a couple of the differences, but I want to be real explicit about it here so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we've got some side-by-side screenshots where you'll see the TaxSlayer books, payroll feature over here on the left, and the new Workful feature over here on the right. So up first would be these advanced settings. At this point, it's in the employee setup wizard. If you ever want to make changes to an existing employee, you have to click through that wizard until you get to this this view here where it shows your default withholdings, and then you have to click advanced. It takes you to a little window here where you will you'll plug in whatever those additional withholdings or deductions are. Whereas in the new program, it's going to be right there on the profile where you can plug in extra withholding right through the W-4. Number two, maybe the biggest change we've had is adding these contractors to the payroll run and also the ability to pay them via ACH. So anytime you add a team member, it's going to ask you which one, if you're adding a W-2 or a 1099, it's going to give you a breakdown of the information we'll need. And then we'll give you that option to pay them through direct deposit. Also have the ability to invite contractors to access a contractor portal. Has much fewer bells and whistles than the employee profile. It's really just a place for them to log in and grab their stubs. Simplified local taxes. So this is something I wanted to highlight just to kind of show you a general difference between using the two products. You've got our setup for additional or advanced state withholdings, where we kind of got everything into this one view. And while it probably seems simple to folks who've been using it for years, it's an area where we felt caused a lot of confusion. So we kind of simplified that and broke it down, pieced out the specific advanced withholding options that people really wanted. One of them was this add local withholding. So we made it a really simple 3-step process to add those in. Again, also wanted to highlight the inactive designation for employees, as well as removing employees from a company. If an employee is terminated, what you'll want to do is go and mark them inactive. We will still, if you're on our full service tax filing, we will still include them in all the tax filings, as well as the W-2 or 1099 at the end of the year. And if you have not paid them yet, if there's no transactions to them, you can go ahead and delete that team member. So when we were looking at the employee portal, we skimmed through this, but for anybody who's interested in learning more, please reach out. We can do a whole nother webinar just on that and the employee experience. But team members can access their pay stubs. They can access a timesheet system and submit requests. We also have a mobile application for employees where they can clock in directly from their cell phones. We have a geo-fenced feature that ensures that they're on site when they clock in and out. But again, we can talk about all that in more depth after this. Covered that in depth, I feel like. So this is one thing I wanted to highlight. Oh, let's go back. Is the pay groups. We don't have pay groups in Workful. The majority of our customers are companies with less than 25 employees, and really didn't find that they had a big need for pay groups. So if any of you are currently using the pay groups feature in TaxSlayer books, we have a workaround for that, which is really based on using our off-cycle payroll run. We can, if that's an issue for you or something you want to learn more about, shoot me a note and I will send you information on how we can address that in Workful. Okay, covered both of these in pretty good depth as well. So we're gonna keep moving here. I think we're making decent time. So the company setup is gonna be, it's gonna, again, not really be essential for you all starting off. We are gonna move all your information over for you, but I do want you to have an idea of what it looks like to create a company in Workful. And there's 2 perspectives we're going to look at. One is an owner's perspective, one is a Workful Pro's perspective. Then we'll talk about the differences. So let me pull up this Workful Pro dashboard. We'll zoom in a little bit there. So what we're looking at here is what a payroll professional dashboard it looks like in Workful, and you'll notice it's pretty similar to the TaxSlayer books layout. You can search for your companies here if you have a long list of them. You access your clients' companies just by clicking on their name. Whoop. There we go. Get back to your Pro dashboard by clicking on your username there. We'll head back out. Now, I've got a video that covers this dashboard in depth, and I'm going to send it to any of you that have more than one company currently in TaxSlayer books. But it highlights some features that I'll touch on here. One of the things we've heard about all the time with TaxSlayer books is that you wanted to be able to have multiple people in the office working on different clients, payroll and bookkeeping. So what we have in Workful is additional Workful pros. We call them sub pros, where if you own a tax office and you have a list of clients and you have employees in the tax office that are doing payroll on specific clients' behalf, you can invite them to create pro accounts under yours, and you can assign Workful pros to specific companies, meaning Jack Dawson is not going to see every company on your list. He's just going to see Dennis and Drew Shoeshine. Or you can give him a group of companies that he can have access to. So I'm gonna show you real quickly what it looks like to add a client from the Pro dashboard. You've got three options here. We're going to look at creating a company on their behalf. We'll cover these other two options in that other webinar. We're going to use Stanley Smith again. Oh, yeah, we'll do. Okay. So step one, just general company information. If you've created a company in TaxSlayer books recently, you'll know asks for a lot more information. What type of business it is, what type of industry they're in, things that really aren't that important if all we're focusing on is payroll. So this is what it would look like on step two. You're going to fill out the client's info. And here's something I want to discuss really quickly. So with Workful Pro, you have the option to invite your clients to access their company along with you, or you can keep them out. So totally up to you. We heard a lot of it. Just going to put in a fake email address there. Had a lot of folks who did want their clients to access their accounts. Got a lot of folks who don't want them to access their accounts. So you've got the option to go either route. But once those two steps are done, it's going to give you the chance to verify the information there. And then you create the company, and bam, they're on your list. So at this point, you'll want to click into the company. And now, brand new to Workful, we've got an onboarding widget that really helps you make sure you're covering all the bases when you set up a new company. First and foremost, you're adding in team members. So you've got the ability to add in an employee or a contractor, and you can click through and plug in each one of them just like we did on the last section, or you can skip over that and knock out the rest of it. One thing I want to point out, and I'll point it out again in just a minute, is that the first employee is always going to be that business owner. So when you plug in the business owner's name and the client details, they're going to be added here as an employee. You don't have to pay them in here. If they're in this list, doesn't mean you have to pay them. I know a lot of folks have the company owners on a draw where they may be on a monthly or quarterly draw based on what kind of revenue that company generated, but they're still going to be here in the employee list. Step two is setting up the pay schedule. Again, we've kept it pretty simple here. We got your biweekly. You pick the day that they get paid on. When's the first pay date? So we're going to grab the next 4 Fridays that are options. We'll go with the 26th, so next week. And then option for the pay period. So which 2 weeks are we paying them for? I'm going to do that one. That means we're going in real time. So we're going to give you the breakdown there. You can go back and fix it if anything doesn't look right. And then after this onboarding widget is done, you can always go back into settings and make adjustments to these. But this is how we're going to calculate this company's pay periods. Next steps are federal and state tax information. So we're going to let you know exactly what do we need from you on this next step. We need the EIN, we need their tax deposit schedule, and then the company's legal information. Now, if you opt into our full service tax filing, we are going to drive all of our filings off of what you enter in here. So you want to make sure that it is accurate, and we ask for it all up front. Now, if you don't have it, you can certainly exit out of this onboarding, get the rest of the setup done, and then when you do get this information, come back and plug it in. And for anybody who doesn't currently have this information plugged into your TaxSlayer books companies, we are going to be reaching out to you for the info to make sure that everything is completely set up by the time you log in the next month. Up next is your state tax info. Now we're going to ask you on this one to add your team members so that we know which state we're generating this info for, and make sure that you have a smooth onboarding experience. So once you're through that onboarding widget, you'll be on that dashboard like we looked at in the first the payroll run demo. For additional settings, if you're running a direct deposit, you'll go to the settings and plug in their bank info. And from here, it'll ask you for the account and routing number. It'll ask you for the principal signers information so we can verify that, one, the company owns the account, two, that the account is open and active and in good standing. And then the third step, what we'll do is run a test deposit through it to make sure that the lines of communication are accurate, and then you'll verify that test deposit amount. That is all we're going to cover in this section for right now. I think we've got about 13 minutes left, so I'm going to get a little move on here. Oop, there we go. Okay, so got the demo done. So I wanted to reiterate this again because this can sometimes cause confusion. The company owner is going to be automatically added as an employee of the company. And if you mistakenly set up a company outside of your pro dashboard, but you're actually a Workful Pro, it's actually going to add you as an employee of that company. So you want to make sure, if you are a pro, you want to make sure that you are only adding companies from within your pro dashboard. The onboarding wizard is going to assist with all the initial setup steps. And again, I wanted to say, if you don't have some of this information when you're going through setup, you can click this little circle here with the two arrows on it. It'll hide the onboarding widget, and you can move forward with setting up the rest of the company info. Again, on the creating from the pro dashboard, we got a two-step process. The client, filling out the client info. I want to reiterate here again that if you don't want this client to have access to the company, you are going to you're going to plug in either hello@workful.com, 123@workful.com, and what that's going to do is keep us from sending them an email for them to create an account themselves. Now, as we're currently migrating your companies over to Workful, we are by default not granting your clients access. So if you choose to in the future change that to where they can log in and process payroll for themselves, or manage employees, take advantage of other features, you've got the ability to add them by logging into their company, plugging their email in, and sending an invite. Okay. Now, if you are a business owner and you're actually going to be creating a company for a business that you own, that you're also a part of, what you'll do is, let's see, you will sign up from the website. And since I'm already logged in, it's dropping me into this company creation process. So what did I use last time? We'll say Robin's Cafe, 953, whoop, 953, there we go. And after that quick step, it's going to take us into that dashboard, and it's going to drop us into that exact same onboarding widget, and we'll ask you for all the company information that we'll need to make sure that your payroll is calculated accurately. Okay. Get this mouse working. There we go. All right, now I want to cover some new features. All these things we've talked about at some point during this webinar, but I wanted to hammer them one more time to make sure that we get it all in here. And one new feature that I don't have in here that I don't know that it just didn't cross my mind until this moment is that the payroll data from Workful is going to sync up with your existing TaxSlayer bookkeeping accounts. So if any of you are doing payroll and bookkeeping in TaxSlayer books, anytime you run payroll and Workful, that data is going to get pushed over to your now Workful books accounting and be included on your ledger. So there won't be any duplicate efforts there for having to go in and make a journal entry or track payroll as an expense, as well as the tax filing payments. We'll push those over and they'll be included in your books as well. Now, I've also spoken with some pros and some business owners who were using TaxSlayer books for payroll, but were using QuickBooks for your accounting. And if you are using QuickBooks Online for your accounting, we actually integrate with that system as well. So when you run payroll in Workful, it's going to push that data over to your QuickBooks Online account and be included in your books there. If you are doing payroll for clients and your clients use QuickBooks Online, same deal. We're going to push that information over to your QuickBooks account, so it's one less thing for you to do after you run payroll. Okay, so biggest new feature that we have that I think will be most important to you is our full service tax filing. And that means that we remit payments, it means we file forms, it means we handle everything from January to December, including your year-end form filing on your behalf. So it's something we've already had a number of TaxSlayer Books Pro customers move over, and some TaxSlayer Books business owner customers move over to Workful, and the feedback we have on it has been very good. So hope you can look forward to using that later on this year. The employee process tools, something that, from my perspective, can make your life a lot easier. And what I mean by that is if you have clients or if you have a business owner and you've got employees that are hourly employees, typically you're either having to track those hours on a spreadsheet. Maybe you've got one of those old punch in, punch out timesheet systems where you've got the little time card at the front door. For a pro, you're probably getting an email from your client, 2 days too late sometimes. So what this does for you is integrates that all into one place. So if your clients' employees are clocking in and out as they're supposed to, or if you're a business owner, if your employees are clocking in and out like they're supposed to, then on Monday or Wednesday or Friday, when you go to run payroll, it's going to pull all those timesheet hours in. You're not going to have to type any in there. You're going to click Run Payroll. It's going to populate all the hours and the check totals. You'll hit Submit, and you are done with payroll. So it takes what could be a 30-minute to a half a day process, turns it into literally a 2-minute process of just logging in and hitting 2 buttons. PTO tracking is also new, and I should have included expense reimbursements as well, but the PTO system is really more primarily for our business owner customers who have time off policies. Certainly set them up for if you're a pro, if you have clients, you can certainly set up PTO policies for them if their employees need to update their time off tracking systems. Client access to managed companies. This is something that we heard just a ton about from our TaxSlayer Books Pro users, where you want your client to be able to log in and either help process payroll, to help manage employees, to help manage data, so that if you are, let's say, going on vacation, you want to kind of be off of payroll for the weekend, you can do that. And that's the same case with the multiple pro logins. We hear all the time that for business owners and for pros who are running payroll, that you just kind of feel like you're tied to it and you can't ever get away from it. Well, this gives you the opportunity to do that. And then 2-day ACH, something that has been requested for years, something that we're finally able to do. So instead of a Monday to Friday ACH, we're able to offer you a Wednesday to Friday direct deposit process. And if you've ever woken up on Monday and realized it was a bank holiday, this probably sounds pretty good to you, because whereas it would have kicked it out until the following Monday, now you can run it on Wednesday and have your employees paid on that Friday. All right, now that is that's the end of the presentation. I hope that